Hi there, I'm Trucker Ray, and I'm going to take this opportunity to show you how to hook up to a trailer, to hook your rig to a trailer, the proper procedures. There is a bad way of doing it and there's a good way of doing it, and I'm going to show you the proper way of doing it. But first of all, we're going to start with our airlines. This airline here is the red one. This is what would be hooked up to the red air hose on your on your truck rather. This supplies air to your airbags. This supplies air to the tanks. The blue is your service line. When you hit your brake in the truck or hit your spike, this will send air to the brakes. So that's what this is for. And of course, this is your electrical wires. We'll go into more about that a little bit later. And right in here, you're going to find where your insurance papers are for the trailer. I've seen a lot of drivers that will not even look at that. And I have checked many trailers, and this documentation is wrong. It's either the wrong trailer or it's an expired tag in there. And if you stop at a scale, they ask for that information and you provide that information and it's the wrong tag, they're going to know you didn't do a proper inspection on your trailer or probably your truck, and you'll probably get fined. So what I normally do is I will check before I even hook up to it. I will check to make sure the documentation in here is accurate and correct. The trailer here is 723181. Tag on it is 2018, which is good. And 723181. Okay, so we know that the documentation is good, so we can put that back in. When you park your trailer in a yard when it's cold, it's always best to put it in sleep mode if it's empty. This way, it keeps the reefer awake. It'll start up every once in a while, and it'll make sure that it's not frozen up. It's almost like plugging your car in at night when you're in a cold area. So right now it's in sleep mode. So I'm going to take it out of sleep mode and I'm going to do a pre-trip on it. And how you do a pre-trip, it just does it all by itself. You just select pre-trip mode. You go into menu and select pre-trip. And now it's programmed in pre-trip. And now what it's going to do, it's going to fire up. And it is going to run through all of the sensors. It's going to check the heater. It's going to check the cooler or the refrigeration unit. It's going to check everything. So I will check my landing gear, and I will also check to make sure nothing is damaged along the floor. The rails that go along. Well, first of all, the landing gear looks good. Doesn't look like it's been cracked at all. And the floor looks really good. I always double check and make sure that this thing has got fuel in it. It's got more than enough in it to go pick up my load, and when I'm done picking up the load, I'll top it up. I notice that the hoses are proper height. They're supposed to be 18 inches off the ground, so that looks good. I checked the mud flap, made sure it's secure. And I also look to make sure there isn't any body damage to it. And if there is, I make note of that in my inspection. So in case someone did damage the trailer, I'm not going to get blamed for it. All right, it's time to hook up to it. I always make sure that the pin locked, and I'm going to check that pin after I hook up all my hoses, make sure it locked in there properly. Because it's the winter time, it's always good just to make sure you knocked off any salt. And if it's really, really cold, don't hit it too hard or you'll break it right off. Blue goes on blue. Set it up like so, push it down. Now one other thing I'm going to show you. sometimes this will not make a proper connection. And sometimes you'll have a light that'll be out. So when I go shopping, I buy bread, I always keep the tabs. They're really handy. This is something I kind of came up with, but anybody, I'm sure other people have done it too. If you don't have a connection, just lift this up, slide that little tab in there, and that'll fix your problem 99% of the time, unless there's a faulty wire connection in there. That works beautifully. All right, one other thing that I check. I checked to make sure that the fifth wheel is locked up properly, that the pin is locked. I've seen cases where people think they're hooked up to it, even though I did a tug test, which you probably noticed. It's hard to do a tug test when your wheels are sitting on compact snow. You could just end up sliding it a bit. You don't really know. So I always double check every time. Even when I stop for fuel, when I walk away from my truck and lose sight of my truck, whether I'm getting something to eat or getting a coffee, I always check that. I walk around my trailer and I also check to make sure that's locked up, because if you drop your trailer when you're heading down the road, that's a huge disaster. This crank has two different gears. It's got a high and a low gear. I have it in the low gear right now to show you what it does. You can actually be spinning this thing for who knows how long, but if you ever had dropped your trailer, this would be the way to get it back up if you didn't damage your landing gear. But the high gear is the one you want to use to crank it up. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is now I'm going to check all my lights. I'm turning on my hazards, my lights, my headlights are on, and I'm also going to want to check my brake lights. And you're probably wondering how I do that. Well, I've set up a bungee here. It's kind of connected to my seat, and I'll put it on the spike, and voila, my brake light should have came on. I always make sure that the license plate is clean, that the license plate light is not being blocked by dirt, that it actually works. I also made sure that the lights in fact work, and all my marker lights are on. So I will walk around my trailer and make sure all my lights are clean. When you go through a scale, CVSE sees your truck with all your lights on and clean, good visibility. That makes them very, very happy. Now, I guess most companies, this company for sure, takes really good care of their trailers and their equipment. So I probably should have checked the inside of the trailer before I hooked up to it to make sure there's no product in it, but I know there's not, because there was a little tag that was on where the light goes in that it said it had been washed, so I know it was empty. But if it didn't have that, I would definitely check to make sure this thing is empty before I hook up to it. Yeah, definitely empty, which is a good thing. Now, because I don't know how much product is going to be loaded onto the trailer, whether it's going to be up to here or right to the doors, I need to make sure I have the proper load bars with me. Now, these particular load bars are very, very common with most companies, but in fact, they are legal in some states and some places in Canada, and I think it was implemented last year. And the reason why is because nobody really knows what the load or weight restriction is for these load bars. So you put them on the wall, one at a time, as hard as you can, and make sure you fasten it in. Yeah, it looks fine and everything, but as soon as you hit a bump, or you go around a corner, the trailer will twist, and most of the time, you end up at the consignee, and this thing's laying on the ground. This is the right way to go. If you have one of these in place, then you can use the load bar, because then you know for sure that your load is secure. How this goes on, just hooks up like so. It's actually quite simple. voila, there you go. You put something against this, you got your pallets here, this is not gonna fall out. Then you can put your load bar on the bottom. Makes it look good, but it's a good thing to have two of these. And how to get this thing properly off, there's a little tab here, and you just release this, and it comes right off. And one of the final things that I do is I make sure that the trailer looks good, that the floor is clean, not damaged at all, because you go to a shipper and your trailer looks like crap, it makes the company look like crap, and you don't want that. You want to give the best impression. First impression is everything, especially if it's a new customer. And I always make sure that those latches are in properly. Sometimes you can close up the doors and not realize that those aren't latched in properly. And I think this trailer is good to go. Well, there you have it. That's how you hook up your trailer to your rig and do an inspection. I would have went into detail regarding how to set the actual reefer to the right temperature, but some reefers might be different with other companies. I would consult your company for more information on that. And that's all we have for you. So, I'm off to the shipper.